again, welcome to the baptism. And Samantha is very eager for us to get on with it. Keep the sermon brief. Keegan seems happy. So, baptism is a sign of one's choice to live in the new world that God is bringing into being. Into a world where we love one another and we trust that this world is made by God, that it is good, and that even though bad things happen outside us and in us, in the end, all will be gathered into God's loving embrace. We trust that as Christians, and we live that out as best we can in the church and as a sign in the world that that's the kind of world we're living in. And sometimes it's easier to believe that than others. I've been particularly struggling with shooting down of the airplane over Ukraine. Many of you have. But alternative people on board were Dutch. And my father's Dutch. My brother lives in Holland. And he's taken that flight a number of times. He said that the people on it, the Dutch folks, they're going on vacation, his families, young people, just really looking forward to having some time away from home and enjoying themselves. And then suddenly, we're just not there. So, it certainly is a world into which Samantha and Keegan are being baptized, where bad things happen and where evil is real. So, we are preparing them for that world, to live in that world, by bringing them up in a community of people that see them and that love them and that challenge them to know that they are loved and to live that love out in the world around them. So that as they go into the world, they may be beacons of light. Now, never underestimate the power of people seeing you, and knowing you, and loving you, wishing you well, bringing forth whatever is best in you. When that happens, we are transformed. We become whom God intended us to be, rather than whom we fear we are. I've been reading a memoir recently called Good Morning, Mr. Mandela. It's by a woman called Zelda. And she grew up very poor in South Africa and got a job as a secretary working for the government. And this was right at the time when Nelson Mandela was released from prison and became president of South Africa. And she, by chance, wound up on his staff. And she was a white South African and grew up with people who thought that Mandela was the agent of the devil, being black, and as they thought he was a communist, he wasn't. But anyway, they had absolutely no time for him. And here she was working for him. Now, Nelson Mandela was one of the most remarkable people, I think the most remarkable person in the 20th century. And genuinely committed himself to see the best in everyone. That included people who had kept him in jail for 27 years. Committed to seeing the best in them. And so he kept seeing the best in Zelda. And she became from one of the cool secretaries to eventually his personal secretary, whom he invited to come work with him when he retired. And so she traveled all over the world with him and became a true servant leader of international stature. And on the back back cover of her book, there are recommendations from President Bill Clinton, from Bono of the U2, and from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I thought, wow, if I write a book again, I'd love to have those three people recommended. That would be cool. And it's a measure of what had happened to her. And what happened to her happened because Nelson kept seeing what was best in her and bringing it out and being grateful for all that she was doing in response. So that's an image of what church is for me. We are the people who, as Keegan grows into himself, sees him and admires him and loves him. And we've got people here who are really good at that. And some people are really good at that when they're babies. And some people are good at that when they're toddling around and entering grade school. Some people are even good at that when they're in the 8th grade, which is a challenge. We all need that. We need people to see us, to know us, and to see who's God calling us to be. What's true about this person? What gifts do they have? What passions do they share? And call that into being through the relationships that we have. And we do that because we trust that this world, with all of its challenges, and we ourselves, with all of the challenges we have, are made by God, and God loves them and loves us. And we trust that in the end, all will be drawn into God's loving embrace. So that's what we're about this morning, and we'll see how it goes. So I invite